It was minus 45 degrees Celsius. The wind howled across the prairie. A truck sat parked on the shoulder. Inside, the engine kept running. The driver didn't move toward town. There was a hotel just 6 kilometers away. He never even glanced at it. Most people would call that crazy. Most people would be wrong. This is the world of Canadian long-haul trucking, a world with its own brutal logic. A logic most outsiders never understand. You'd think the answer is simple. Hotels cost money, drivers want to save. That's what everyone assumes at first. But that's not the real reason. The real reason runs much deeper. It's about money. Yes, but also survival. It's about rules no civilian ever sees. It's about a system built on speed. Let's break the biggest myth right now. People think truckers avoid hotels to save cash. A room might cost $80 a night. That sounds like the obvious answer. It isn't even close to the truth. The real reason is something colder. Something tied directly to the clock. Every Canadian trucker lives by hours of service rules. Transport Canada enforces these regulations strictly. A driver gets 14 hours of working time. After that, the law demands rest. But here's what most people miss. That rest doesn't have to happen in a hotel. It can happen right inside the cab. And for most drivers, it almost always does. Stepping into a hotel costs more than money. It costs something far more valuable. It costs time on the clock. Checking in, unpacking, showering, sleeping, checking out. That process can eat 2 or 3 hours. In an industry paid by the kilometer, that's brutal. 3 hours lost might mean 300 kilometers lost. 300 kilometers might mean $200 lost. Multiply that by 20 nights a month. The math becomes impossible to ignore. This is where the real facts begin. Canadian trucks are built for one true purpose: survival inside a moving steel shelter. The sleeper cab isn't just a bed. It's a fully insulated survival pod. Modern semi-trucks use diesel-fired bunk heaters. These heaters can run for hours without idling the engine. They burn fuel far more efficiently than the main engine. A bunk heater might use less than 1 liter per hour. Idling the main engine could burn 3 to 4 liters per hour. At current diesel prices near $1.60 per liter across Alberta and Saskatchewan, that gap matters enormously. Over a 10-hour rest period, the savings are significant. Drivers calculate this difference constantly. Every liter saved is money kept. Every dollar kept is a reason to stay parked. This single fact already breaks the simple hotel myth. It was never just about avoiding a bill. It's about an entire system of efficiency, a system most drivers built through brutal experience. Now let's go even deeper into the facts. Truck cabs today are nothing like older models. A modern sleeper cab spans roughly 6 to 8 feet. That's enough room for a real mattress. Some trucks include memory foam bunks. Some include curtains for full blackout darkness. Some even include mini fridges and microwaves. This isn't roughing it anymore. This is a self-contained mobile home. Drivers personalize these spaces heavily. Photos, blankets, coffee makers, small heaters. It becomes more familiar than any hotel room. There's comfort in routine, even extreme routine. A driver knows exactly how his cab feels. He knows which side faces the wind. He knows how fast frost builds on the windshield. A hotel room offers none of that familiarity. Temperature management becomes the next layer of this survival logic, and it reveals just how calculated these drivers actually are. At minus 45 degrees Celsius, the air outside isn't just cold, it's dangerous within minutes of exposed skin. Frostbite can begin on bare skin in under 10 minutes at that temperature, especially with prairie wind chill factored in. That single fact changes everything about why a driver would rather stay inside his truck than walk across a parking lot to a hotel lobby. Every trip outside the cab becomes a calculated risk, not a casual decision. Drivers in Saskatchewan and Alberta know this instinctively because the prairie winter doesn't forgive mistakes. The wind has almost nothing to slow it down across those flat stretches of Highway 16 or Highway 1, so a 15-minute walk in a city might feel like nothing, while the same 15 minutes on an exposed truck stop in rural Saskatchewan can become a genuine medical concern. This is why most drivers treat their truck as a sealed environment, something they enter once and don't leave until necessary. Climate-controlled cabs use auxiliary power units, often called APUs, which can maintain interior temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius or higher, even when it's minus 40 outside. These units are expensive to install, sometimes costing $8,000 to $12,000 Canadian, but owner-operators see them as essential equipment rather than luxury add-ons. The math is simple once you understand it. An APU pays for itself within 2 or 3 winters through fuel savings alone, while also removing the need for hotel stops entirely. This isn't comfort for comfort's sake. It's a financial and survival decision rolled into one piece of equipment. There's also a regulatory layer most people never consider. Transport Canada's hours of service regulations require detailed electronic logging through devices mounted in the cab. Every time a driver's status changes, from driving to on-duty to off-duty to sleeper berth, that change gets recorded automatically. If a driver leaves the truck to check into a hotel, his logged location shifts. Auditors and safety officers can review these logs at any time, and inconsistencies raise flags. Staying in the truck keeps everything simple, traceable, and clean. One location, one continuous log, no explanations needed later if a roadside inspection happens. Insurance considerations add another layer to this picture. Many trucking companies have policies that discourage drivers from leaving high-value cargo unattended for extended periods, especially in remote areas. A loaded trailer might be carrying goods worth anywhere from $50,000 to over $200,000, depending on the freight. Walking away to a hotel for the night means leaving that cargo alone in a truck stop parking lot, sometimes in areas with limited security cameras or staff presence. Drivers who've experienced theft, even rare cases, never forget the lesson. Staying with the truck isn't paranoia. It's standard practice baked into the culture of the job. Fuel efficiency strategies go even further than just running a bunk heater. Many drivers position their trucks deliberately before stopping for the night, angling the cab so the wind hits the rear rather than the windshield, reducing heat loss through the largest glass surface. Some carry insulated curtains that snap across the windshield from the inside, creating a thermal barrier between the cab and the cold glass. These curtains can drop interior heat loss by a noticeable margin, sometimes several degrees over a 10-hour rest period. None of this is taught in a classroom. It's passed down between drivers, learned through trial and error, sometimes learned the hard way after a brutally cold night, taught a harsh lesson. The financial pressure behind all of this cannot be overstated. Most long-haul drivers in Canada are paid by the kilometer, with average rates hovering somewhere between 50 and 65 cents per kilometer, depending on the company and route. A driver running the corridor between Edmonton and Regina, a distance of roughly 780 kilometers, might earn $400 to $500 Canadian for that single run. Every hour spent off the road, whether parking, checking in, or unpacking at a hotel, is an hour not generating income. Independent owner-operators feel this even more acutely, since they're also covering their own fuel, maintenance, and insurance costs out of every load they haul. There's a psychological factor too, one that's harder to put a dollar figure on, but just as real. Staying in the truck means staying close to the routine that keeps a driver sane during weeks away from home. The cab becomes an anchor point, a small piece of consistency in an otherwise unpredictable job. Hotels, by contrast, are unfamiliar, transient, disconnected from the rhythm of the road. For drivers spending 20 or more nights a month away from family, that small comfort of a familiar bunk matters more than most people realize. There's one more piece of the deep facts that ties everything together: the weather monitoring habits of experienced drivers. Long before a storm hits, most veteran truckers are already checking Environment Canada alerts on their phones, cross-referencing with trucking-specific apps that track road conditions across Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. When a severe cold warning drops temperatures below -40, many drivers make the decision to park early, sometimes hours before they'd normally stop, specifically so they can settle the truck into position while there's still daylight and manageable wind. This isn't hesitation, it's strategy. A driver who parks at 3 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. has more time to run the APU, position insulated curtains, and check fuel levels before darkness and falling temperatures make every task outside the cab riskier. Now here comes the twist that most people never expect. After all this talk of saving money, avoiding regulatory complications, and protecting cargo, there's a deeper truth hiding underneath. Many drivers admit when you ask them honestly that hotels actually feel less safe than their own trucks. A hotel room is unfamiliar territory, surrounded by strangers, with doors and windows a driver doesn't control or fully trust. Inside the cab, everything is exactly as he left it. He knows every sound the truck makes, every creak of the frame in high wind, every hum of the heater. That familiarity in the middle of a brutal prairie blizzard becomes its own form of safety, one that no hotel room, no matter how comfortable, can replace. This reveals something most outsiders completely misunderstand about long-haul trucking. It's not just a job people tolerate for a paycheck. For many drivers, the truck becomes an extension of identity, almost a second home that happens to move across the country. Spend 20 nights a month in that same 5x8 space, and it stops feeling like equipment. It starts feeling like the one constant in a life defined by constant motion, missed birthdays and holidays spent somewhere on Highway 1 instead of at a kitchen table. That's the part people forget when they see a truck idling alone in a snow-covered parking lot at minus 45 degrees. They see isolation. The driver inside often sees something closer to control, calm, and quiet self-reliance built over years on roads that don't forgive weakness. Behind every one of those frosted windshields is someone who chose discomfort over distraction, who learned that survival on the prairie highways isn't about comfort, it's about preparation, routine, and respect for a climate that doesn't care how tired you are. So the next time you see a transport truck parked alone in the middle of nowhere during a brutal Canadian winter, remember this. That driver isn't stuck. He isn't being cheap. He's making a calculated decision built on fuel costs, safety logs, cargo protection, and a strange kind of comfort that only another trucker would understand. If this gave you a new respect for what these drivers go through, drop a comment and tell me what surprised you most. Hit that like button if you learned something you didn't expect. And if you want more real stories from inside the world of Canadian trucking, make sure you're subscribed, because this is just one of many stories still waiting to be told